Hey guys, welcome. Can you hear me? Just a little, Brenda? Let's see. I need to turn it up. Let's see what I've got going on. Is that better? Or the same? You can hear me okay? Good. Good. Go. Awesome. Good. Okay. So we will have our meeting start at 6. We'll be good to go. Awesome. Perfect. Good. Okay, good. Jennifer, were you able to see my screen when I shared just now? Oh, still got you muted. Can you unmute, Jennifer? Oh, it shows it locked. Oh, here we go. Heck.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are.
I think that's a really good idea to keep me muted. That's one way to keep my mouth shut. But I wasn't watching the screen when you did whatever you're asking me about, so I can't answer that question.
Let me do it again, and you can tell me if you're catching it. Okay. Do you see that?
Okay, yes. Good. Yes. Perfect. There. Okay. I'm muting again.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. Let's see. Good, good. We have about 15 minutes before the meeting starts. In case you're joining us early, welcome. Very nice. So Darla, can you hear me? Darla and Dawn. Yes, good. Okay. I was just clicking. I wasn't saying anything. I was clicking around with my mouse. We have about 10 more minutes before we start in case y'all want to go grab something to drink, a little glass of wine, something yummy, some chamomile tea. Good. We're going to have people from across the state joining us this evening. That's why we're on WebEx instead of Zoom. last time when we tried to do Zoom and I had invited people from around the state, I had forgotten we were limited to 100 people. It was a rude awakening. So we are on WebEx tonight. Hoping everything goes smoothly. Okay. We have 10 more minutes to go. Dawn, you still don't have sound? Stop it, Brenda. That looks too good. You better stop it, Brenda, showing me chocolate. So Dawn, still no sound. I need you to go in. Let me see. Here is a I'm trying to see where you could possibly change that. There we go. Paul, I see what you wrote. And the best thing about that is that I did that a lot for the president's meeting this year. I kept trying to log on for the president's meeting and then realized I was very early, like by 2 weeks. So I started calling it presuming, which I think is a great tongue-in-cheek way to describe something like that. Here we go. Nothing, sweetie, thanks. Okay. Plug this in, make sure you don't run out of juice.
Okay.
Hang on. There it is. Okay. Ooh. I did it. Okay. Alrighty. We have 5 more minutes before we're going to get started. I want to remind you if you're having any issues with sound, I think if you go up to the menu across the top of the screen and select audio and video, it may be able to help you resolve problems with your speaker. I can't say about this speaker, but still. We're going to start promptly at 6. We'll be ready to rock and roll. As I mentioned earlier, we have people joining us from across the state who are interested in finding out about ants. I know I am. They were some of my favorites when I was growing up. I guess because they were community insects. My brothers teased me a lot about caring more about ants than boys. I was 8. Why not? Well, hello from Balcones Canyonlands chapter. Good. We have 3 more minutes to go. Let me close this door. There we go. Okay. Heart of Texas chapter, welcome. 2 more minutes and we'll get started. Does anyone else have problems with their audio? We've got Brazoria County here, Cradle of Texas chapter. One more minute. See if I can find. Good, good, good. Okay. Perfect. We have people from Cross Timbers, Guadalupe, El Camino Real, Hayes County Master Naturalist, and the East Texas chapter. Nice. I'm so glad you could all join us. Okay, time to start the meeting. It's 6 o'clock according to my clock, and I'm going to share my screen. Here we go, share content. Here we go. Let's do slideshow from the beginning. Welcome everyone to our September chapter meeting for the Heartwood chapter. Hang on just a second. I have got, it's not what I want to have happen. Hold on just a second while I resolve some technical issues that I have going on right here. You know, we've got to have a couple of those, right? Okay. We had some people joining us a little late. It was not letting me run my slideshow. Okay, so let's see if I can do this. Adrian, I'm going to make you a co-host if you don't mind. So you can look for people who are.
I'm admitting people that are in the waiting room. This is Wizzie.
Oh, Wizzie, you are the best. You are so far ahead of the game. Okay.
You've got a lot juggling, so yeah, I got it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. If you get to your part, then we'll go ahead and let Adrian take control. I made you a co-host too, Adrian. You can't hear yourself?
Oh, there we go. I guess
There you are.
I made co-host. I couldn't unmute myself before. We're good.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay, let me share content again. Let's go back to this. Let's go back to the beginning. There. Welcome again. We're ready to start. Okay, this looks awesome. Good. Okay, so our first order of business is to recognize our members. Melissa, can you unmute? I am not hearing you, Melissa. Let's see what I've got going on. I will go ahead. Well, let's go back. Let's go ahead and announce the.
Okay, it let me unmute.
Yeah, you did it. You did it. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so our sort of recertifications are Ursula and Richard Kyle, and then we have Joy Klump and Terry MacArthur. So our hours for this last month for August, we had 78 volunteers that volunteered. We had 753.75 hours logged in regular volunteer hours, 185.5 AT hours. And then our intern class, wow, they've been so busy. So this is just overall. So intern class hours were 2,046.5. And then our volunteer hours from our interns were 1,117. And then our AT from interns was 742 hours.
Wow.
That was amazing. I thought they did a really good job.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much, Melissa. That is such good news. Okay, so as you might remember, in June, I sent out a survey to ask people what they thought about when we met, just to make sure that we weren't, there are other conservation-minded organizations that meet on the same days of the week that we do, and wanted to kind of hear when other people were available. And it looks like rather than the first week of the month, it looks as though Wednesday of the second week of the month is when most people are available to meet. And I do know that tonight the Woodlands Green is meeting. I think the Woodlands Hiking Club meets the first Wednesday of the month. I know Terry's off talking to I think Cradle of Texas about mushrooms or cross timbers, one of those tonight. So I wanted you to be aware of this because beginning in January, we will probably transition to the second Wednesday of the month. And so this was the other part of the survey that showed when people wanted to meet. And Wednesday evening at between 6 and 8. It's still evening, which I think is great for people who work. I really do appreciate this. So keep that in mind. I don't want it to come as a surprise and you suddenly say in January, nobody ever told me. I'm letting you know now. we did the survey for a reason, and here are the results. So get it on your calendar now that starting in January, we're going to meet the second Wednesday of the month. Okay? We also have officer nominations that need to come. We need to be getting those in soon so we can post them for an entire month before we have our elections. We are taking nominations for president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. If you have someone you'd like to nominate, here are the 2 email addresses you need to send them to. I'll be including those in the bulletin for the next few weeks. So every Monday, you'll see those addresses again. I really would like someone to nominate or nominate themselves for vice president, president, secretary, and treasurer. We still have people in those positions. Andre Hauser has agreed to serve as treasurer again. Adrian Paquette has agreed to serve as secretary. I've agreed to serve as president. We're still taking nominations for those. That doesn't mean we're going to win. But we literally do not have someone who's agreed to run for vice president. So please consider how you'd like to serve the chapter, and we look forward to seeing nominations. Those need to be in by September 20th, so we can do our voting on November 3rd at our last meeting of the year. And then for advanced training opportunities, TMN Tuesdays is coming up on the 14th. The Secret Life of Squirrels. This is actually a squirrel in our backyard who would beg us for almonds every day. Advanced training opportunities, again, Lake Creek Preserve. There's a hike that Adrian Paquette is going to be leading on September 25th from 8 to 11. There is a link to that to sign up for that, so that way she knows how many people to expect. And Adrian is going to be teaching you a little bit about what it takes to be a hike leader. Lake Creek is looking forward to expanding their services to the public and showing how important and vital this area is to maintain as wilderness. So in the bulletin, look for the link to sign up for this Lake Creek Preserve hike. Our book club selection this month is Believers, Making a Life at the End of the World by Lisa Wells. We will be discussing the book on September 16th at 7. It is on the calendar. The reading of the book does not count for advanced training. The discussion does. Join us once you've read the book and we'll talk about it, usually for about an hour, so you get a little advanced training, and it kind of exposes you to things you may not normally read. Okay, Adrian.
All right, so we have a couple of volunteer opportunities coming up for public outreach events. If you have never attended a public outreach event as a volunteer, it's super easy and super fun. The first event we have coming up here very shortly is on September 11th. It's the Clubwoods Hummingbird Festival. And I'm not clear right now if we have a booth or they just need volunteers. We do have a booth.
Both.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
We need both volunteers just for overall helping at the festival. They need help with parking and with directing people. I know somebody always gives lead some hikes. So it's a lot of good things to do. But if you're not volunteering, you can always just attend and have fun. There are so many hummingbirds. It's really awesome. Again, that's on September 11th, and that starts in the morning. I want to say 9 o'clock. Right?
9. Mm-hmm.
9 to 3.
Thank you.
All right. And you'll actually email Susan Beckmeyer to do that, because she's helping to kind of set up volunteers for that opportunity. All right. Let's go to the next one. Thank you. We also have on September 25th, we have the Woodlands Landscaping Solutions. We've done this in the past. This year, we are planning on having a booth as well. So we need some people to be at the booth. And I've told you guys this before, being at a booth is super awesome because you basically get to do what you guys do all the time. Every time you guys tell somebody how much you love being a master naturalist. So you talk about being a master naturalist. I think we have some fun stuff to hand out in terms of like native plants and what else are we doing this year? Do you remember?
We have flyers on native plants that will do well in this area and things like that.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a native plant expert to go to this. Just your master naturalist self. If you're interested in that. Next one, on October 2nd at Mercer, we have the Pollinator Festival. And that's kind of an all-day thing as well, 9 to 2. Is that what that says? Yeah.
Yes.
9 to 2. We'll have 2 shifts for that. We'll have a booth there. And that's, again, just as a master naturalist, what you kind of like doing as a master naturalist. People come up to the booth and they just want to know what being a master naturalist is all about. I will be there, not as a master naturalist, but for my work. So I can easily help coordinate kind of picking up our booth materials and showing you around that event. But again, we'll have two shifts for that. So you don't feel like you'll have to stay the whole time. It's outdoors. They're pretty good at kind of distancing all the booths and making sure everybody is in a kind of safe location as well. They also have a scarecrow competition. Did you send that out, Carolyn, to everybody?
I have not sent it out yet. It's going to go in the next bulletin.
To everybody. That looks like a lot of fun. So in the past, they've had the scarecrow competition where you make a scarecrow and you put it up at Mercer. But they're actually doing it where you keep the scarecrow and you take your pictures. So yeah. If you have a team of people who want to make a cool scarecrow, it's a really fun little competition. All right. Any questions about that? Send those my way. And I'll type my email in the chat. And then finally, maybe, on October 9th, we have the Friends of Texas Wildlife Open House. So I volunteer there, and the past few years, it's funny when people call in and they ask if they can take a tour of the facility. And we always have to say no because all of these animals that are being rehabbed need their space. And we don't want to introduce them to a lot of people. Well, this is your chance to take a tour of the facility. So you can come as an attendee. This will be from, let me see if I have the times written down here. I believe it's 9 to 2. I can update you on those times as well, but we will also have a booth. And if anybody is wanting to volunteer, just help with things like parking and showing people around, you can do that. So let me know if you guys are interested in any of these opportunities. Type my email in the chat here in just a minute. Finally, I don't think there's a slide for this, but we have the first Junior Master Naturalist program starting on September 11th, which is graduation day for interns. So you have to pick and choose which event you want to go to. We are really excited. We have 9 kiddos and ages 9 to 13. I have received so many people wanting to help with this program, and I really, really appreciate it. Right now, as this first class gets started, I'm not sure exactly what we'll need help with. But if you would like to help at some point with our Junior Master Naturalist program, just let me know and I'll write your email down and I'll call on you if I need you. Awesome. That's it.
Thanks so much, Adrienne. I appreciate it. Okay, Brenda, can you unmute? Brenda may. Oh, there you are. Let me see if I can request you.
There we go.
There you go.
Can you
Good job. I got you.
Can you hear me?
I see you and I hear you.
Yay! All right, one more pitch. These are awesome, you guys. And if y'all know about fair trade, please look it up. It's amazing.
Stop with the chocolate.
Worst thing Costco ever did was get those in. Anyway, yeah, so our wonderful president helped with this one. This is Lake Houston Wilderness Park, and it's going to be in September. There's going to be different volunteer opportunities on Saturday. Many of you guys asked for Saturday opportunities, and we've been keeping our eyes out, listening and looking, and we found a few. Lake Houston is one of them. Make sure you wear bug spray, your protective boots, you know, your hats, all those kind of things, because it's going to be everything from probably picking up invasives and that kind of thing. But you can also go on the website and you'll find out a little bit more detail that way. Along that note, to not on Lake Houston, but I wanted to touch base. I know we don't slide for Jones Forest, right, Carolyn?
We don't have one for Jones Forest. We have one for Jones Park. You want to talk about Jones Forest?
Yeah, just briefly. Many of you guys know Terry Finch. She's home. She's well. She'll be back with us probably in 2-3 weeks. But that's her status right now. We are doing lots and lots of pollinator garden things. We are expanding the pollinator garden every time we work out there. So if you guys are interested, if y'all, you know, we meet on Tuesdays, but if you guys are saying, hey, I can't come on Tuesdays, I need to come on a Wednesday, I need to come on Thursday, I need to come on a Saturday, you know, send me an email. I'll get you in touch with the group. There's a group that likes to meet at different times out there. So that's an opportunity to just, you know, have it fit in your schedule. Grab a partner, go out there. It's great. The pollinator garden is looking amazing. And the tree nursery is going to be phenomenal once it's complete. The boys out there are doing a great job. The next opportunity we have is going to be at Jesse Jones Park. We're going to be doing a lot of different pollinator gardens. We're going to be doing a lot of plant propagation, habitat restoration. There's also invasive removals, things like that. These are going to happen on Wednesdays, 8:30 to 11:30 at the homestead. The third Saturday, starting this month, is an invasive. So, you know, wear your gloves, bring your little choppers, and be ready to grab some invasives. Then there's going to be Plant Texas Native starting on Saturday, November 20th from 9 a.m. to 12. Again, wear appropriate pants, shoes, hats, and be prepared to be out there for a little while in the hopefully not heat at that point. We're looking November, so we're hopefully not hot. But anyway, any more information, you can look on our website. We have a great calendar up there with little tabs, and you click on things and find out more information. You can email me, email Carolyn. We can all just fill you in. We're happy to do that. We want to keep everybody busy and happy. So please, and if you guys hear anything, please pass it my way too. Okay. All right, and then the Urban Tree Improvement Program. So they're going to be collecting seeds and so forth. This is one that I highly recommend you go on the website. There is a little blurb on there, so you can click on that and read more about it. But basically, we're going to be collecting seeds, specific seeds. So just take a moment and go take a read on it. Or again, text me, email me. You want information.
Awesome.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Watersheds.
So, like I said, Terry couldn't be with us tonight. She is actually speaking about mushrooms and fungi. That's one of her favorite topics at another Master Naturalist group tonight. She wanted to remind you of these dates that are coming up. If you're looking for some more volunteer hours, she is discussing pest waste problems, the Watershed Project Committee meetings. The next one coming up is on October 7th, and that is online. She sends out a notice for that. She has the ongoing project of labeling all the storm drain markers. You know, we were given, originally it was just going to be, I think, in Grogan's Mill, and they've decided to do it throughout the woodlands now, of putting those markers on the storm drains that tell people don't put anything down here. September 11th, Ace Hardware is having an environmental services booth where we can go and help them hand out things that help with water, help people take the WaterWise pledge, where they pledge to turn off their sprinklers from October to February. And so that's a great booth to get involved with. On September the 25th, Woodlands Landscaping Solutions, like Adrian was talking about before, and October 2nd is the Smarter Choices Workshop. at the Emergency Training Center on I-45. Terry's going to have a lot more events for us to participate in. She has a bunch of village associations that have October events. And as we get those from her, we're going to put them on the calendar. Remember, always check the calendar. We try to keep it as up to date as possible to keep you informed. She is starting a Texas Water Specialist Curriculum Discussion Group that's going to take place the first Monday of every month from 6 to 8, where you'll have an assigned reading and be able to discuss that and get AT hours for that also. One other thing that I forgot to do a slide for is our diversity committee has come up with a writing prompt, and we sent that out to all of our active members just recently. If you have not received that, please reach out to me and I can forward it to you directly. We sent it out through VMS because we were sending it to just our active members. And I want to make sure that you've had a chance to see that. And then if you'd like to respond, you have an opportunity to. If you don't see it in your email, check your spam folder or just contact me and I'll send you a copy. And Mari, can you unmute Mari? Mari is our person who, and apparently my cats have decided to fight. Mari is the person who does our intros for our speakers, and I'm trying to see if I can locate her.
All right, I think I've unmuted.
I got you, Mari, I hear you. Let's do this.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm excited tonight to introduce our speaker, who is Wizzie Brown, and she is with the Texas A&M Urban IPM program as an extension specialist specializing in entomology. And boy, I tell you, she knows her wasps, her hornets, her butterflies, her spiders, and her beetles. She received her Master of Science from Ohio State University and a Master of Science from Texas A&M, both in entomology. And her famous saying is, "Bugs rock." So she's going to discuss ants, the different kinds, and what we need to know about them as Texas master naturalists as we're out in the field and we're plagued by ants that bite us. Wizzie is going to help us understand them and how to explain them to some of our people out there as we continue. So yes, Wizzie, you're on.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so let me get into
There we go.
sharing my stuff.
I see you sharing. There it is, Wizzie.
Fantastic. Let me get that off the screen.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to be talking ant management for some of them. You know, my take on, well, pretty much anything arthropod related is most of it just gets shuffled outside. So I do kill fire ants because I'm allergic to fire ants, but most everything else I just kind of chunk it out the door if it comes inside. So you know, I'm kind of loosey-goosey on management. And I saw a question. I'll get to questions at the end. So if you have questions, type them into the chat and I'll cover those at the end. So when we're dealing with ants, identification can be a little bit tricky for them. And the reason why is while they have the same body structure as other insects with a head, a thorax, and an abdomen, they have different terminology for some parts of their body that is kind of weird for people who don't know what they're referring to. So when you're looking at an ant and you're looking for ant identification, the first thing that we're looking at is what are called nodes, the normal lingo, but the scientific word for that is the petiole and the postpetiole. And some ants have one petiole and some ants have two. And these are actually the very first segment of the abdomen. So the whole abdomen is made up of the petiole, possibly a postpetiole if it's a two-noded ant, and then it has this large bulbous area that is called the gaster. But most people, when you look at an ant, you're not looking at it that closely. And these nodes in here can be hidden by this big bulbous part of the abdomen. And so they, when you say, is it one node or two node, they look at you like you're crazy. But, you know, there is a reason that we do that, because that is essentially the first thing when you go into an ant dichotomous key, it's going to ask you, does it have one node or does it have two nodes? And so that is what it's looking at. It's looking at those very first few sections of the abdomen. The other thing that we look at with ants, usually the next thing that splits out, is at the tip of the abdomen. And this is why, unless you have dealt with ants for a really long time and you've been identifying them and working with them and stuff like that, it can be kind of confusing identifying them, especially from pictures. I mean, even I've been doing this for 25 years now, and sometimes when people send me pictures of ants, it's like, I'm sorry, I can't tell you what that is. I need a sample, because we have to literally look at hairs on the body to identify some of these. And so it can get kind of tricky if you get into some of those weird species. So the next thing after the nodes is typically it sends you to the tip of the abdomen and it says, does it have a stinger or not? And the thing is, sometimes you can see the stinger on these, sometimes you can't see the stinger. Sometimes it's actually inside of the body. And so the other characteristic that you can look for is if they don't have a stinger, you can see if they have a circle of hairs at the tip of their abdomen. So again, you're going to need a good hand lens, because if you think about how small some of these ants are, looking for a circle of hairs on the tip of the abdomen is really, really difficult. And then, of course, we always have to look at the antennae. And when we're looking at the antennae, the base of the antennae is going to be called the scape. So ants are going to have those elbowed antennae. It looks like a elbow, like you're at a 90-degree angle there. And so the long part, that first section, is called the scape, and then you have the different segments. And so often with the antennae, we're going to count the number of segments of the antennae, and then we're also a lot of times going to look to see if it ends in a club shape or not. And if it does have a club shape on the end, we count how many segments are in the club. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into ant identification that could be confusing. Really into the language of insects and stuff like that. So the first insect that I'm going to start off with, we're going to start with the two-noded ants. And this one is a Texas native, even though some people think that this is a pest insect. These are Texas leaf-cutting ants. This is Atta texana, and these can be found in various areas. In the United States, this is only found in Texas and Louisiana. And that is part of the problem when we're dealing with management solutions, because these aren't really a huge problem for the rest of the United States. And so it's really difficult to find products that you can utilize to actually manage these ant populations. And, that's only one piece of the puzzle there. But these, I think, are really, really cool. In Texas, they can get up to 1/2 inch in size. They are a reddish brown color, and they do have two nodes. The big thing here with them is that they are going to have spines on their head and their face, which will differentiate them from some other ants we'll talk about. These are known as polymorphic ants. So this is another term that you got to get used to. We have polymorphic ants, which means that they come in different sizes. So the worker ants are going to be from teeny tiny up to that 1/2 inch in size. And so that's why when I say large ants up to 1/2 inch, there are some that are 1/2 inch, but we have a range of sizes that goes down from there as well. So these ants are going to feed on fungus, and that is their food source. But what is they have to grow that fungus, and so to do that, they will go out and strip foliage from plants and they'll take that down into the nest and they will feed it to the fungus. And the fungus will their mating. This I think is super cool. When they have their mating swarms, the mated females actually have a little pouch that they carry a bit of fungus. It's like a sourdough starter. So they have their little pouch that they put fungus into, and then when they start their new colony, they can start their fungus garden. So super, super cool ants. So their colonies can be huge, absolutely massive. So they are often sometimes called parasol ants. If you look at this ant up here, it looks like a little parasol or umbrella. So that's parasol ant. And then they're also called town ants. And that is because of the way that the mounds are. Sometimes these can be mistaken for fire ant mounds, but these are going to have a central opening in the mound. And they also kind of have this divot or shape that is around where that opening is. And their mounds are going to typically be in an area like this. This is a park in Austin that I went out to years ago. They were having a massive problem with leafcutter ants. And they just have all of these mounds that are grouped together. So the colonies, like I said, they can be huge. They can have anywhere from 3 to 5 million ants. I've seen colonies that are over like 1/4 of an acre in size. They're just huge, huge, huge. And they'll have different chambers under the ground. They have tunnels and, you know, like brood chambers and fungal chambers and garbage chambers and, you know, just all of this stuff that's going on in there. The other thing is that can be tricky about managing these is they are capable of foraging long distances to actually get their food. And so I've seen cases where you have the mounds in area and then down the road is where the ants are going to get food because that's the yard that has the good stuff. You know, good foliage on the plants, it's, you know, it's juicy and tender, and they're going to go for that. I've also where it's the mounds are on one side of the road and they have tunneled underneath the road and they're popping up on the other side to get the plants that are over there. Acacia ants, these aren't as common in Texas. I've only seen these a few times, well, I've only had people bring these to me. Let me rephrase that. So these are going to be a kind of yellowish brown color. Some of them can get like a dark brown, so they kind of look black. And they are medium to large size. They do have 2 nodes that are very distinctive. And these have a very, very obvious stinger. So you can see in this picture at the top there, their stinger is there and it is large and you can definitely see it. These are going to have large eyes compared to a lot of our other ants. So if you look at the head, these are very, very head. And then the weird characteristics here is probably that the base of the antennae is covered. And essentially what that means is where the antennae attaches to the head, there's kind of this little socket. It's almost like a shoulder socket that it kind of pops in there. And so it's kind of covered up. And these ants, I distinct because they have, compared to the ants that people normally see, when they're walking around, their bodies are very long and very, very slender. And you can kind of see that in this bottom picture down here. You can see how they have that really elongated body compared to most ants. And these will typically forage individually. And they are, in some parts of the world, they actually will live inside of acacia trees. But here they'll kind of live in shrubbery and trees and kind of go up in there and they'll to hollowed out areas and stuff like that. But these are capable of stinging, so they do not have a pleasant sting. But like I said, most people don't encounter these very often. Colonies on here, they don't have very large colonies. That's another benefit, and why people don't see them as much is because they have smaller colonies that are in the trees or shrubs or whatever that they're nesting in. They can be aggressive if you kind of get into whatever tree or shrub they're nesting in. You're essentially attacking their home. So they're going to come after you and be aggressive at that point. They are protecting their home. So they are, like I said, capable of stinging. But we generally don't consider these a pest species just because the only time that they really sting people is when people kind of get into their space. So as long as you stay out of their space, they'll stay out of yours. They are omnivores, so they are going to feed on plant tissue as well as other insects, so they're kind of scavengers. And then they're also going to be honeydew tenders. So any of those honeydew producing insects, so bugs, scale and whiteflies, all of those produce copious amounts of honeydew, which is a sweet excellent. And so these ants tend to those sugar substances. Red imported fire ants, these are not a native ant. This is Solenopsis invicta. This is another 2-node ant that has a sting, as I'm sure everyone in this call is aware. And they do have large eyes. Again, their base of their antennae is covered, but that's what people look for. People are looking at red imported fire ants. They're looking for that red and black coloration. So the head and thorax area is going to be a reddish brown color. Master part of the abdomen. So the big key on fire ants when we're looking at them to key them out, we are looking for 2 nodes, and then the next thing that we look at the antennae. They're going to have a 10-segmented antennae that is clubbed, that has the last 2 segments actually in that club shape. So this picture on the bottom is showing how they are polymorphic. Remember, polymorphic means that theirs come in a variety of sizes. And the queen you see is on the right-hand side of that picture. So this is one of those things that it makes me laugh, because when people are describing ants to me, a lot of times they're like, oh, it's the size of a fire ant. And I'm like, that doesn't help me at all, because fire ants come in all these different sizes. And so I don't know what one they're talking about. So, you know, telling me that something is the size of a fire ant is just useless, in my opinion. So red imported fire ants are going to create that mounded nest, going to be more prominent when it is going to be after rains and they're trying to get up out of the water table. In the winter time, they will go down further in the ground, as well as in the summertime when it's really, really hot, they're going to go down into the ground to be closer to the water table and to be in cooler temperature in summer. So these ants are going to be aggressive. They are going to essentially attack steps. So when you're managing fire ants, if you're using a bait product, putting it on top of the mound isn't going to do anything, because they don't look for food there. They actually look for food out from the mound. They have foraging tunnels underground that will pop up away from the mound. So you need to bait around the mound. If you're treating the mound directly with some sort of a contact pesticide, that you would need to put on top of the mound. And so fire ants are somewhat unusual. Most ants are just going to sting you, and that's what's causing the issues. Fire ants are going to bite you, and then they're going to sting you. The sting is actually what is injecting venom. That is what causes the reddening and the burning sensation, and also that little pustule that pops up a few days later. There are people that have allergic reactions to red imported fire ants. I am one of those people. This is actually my thumb after I got stuck and before I was taking allergy shots for. But fire ants, they're there. They're not going. There are predators and fungus and stuff like that that we have released. These are not going to wipe out the red imported fire ant populations. It's just another tool in our tool belt to help us manage those populations a bit. So fire ants are going to be predators, they're scavengers, they're omnivores, so they are going to essentially grab whatever they can, and they are very good at what they do. So when they're foraging for stuff, they're often taking all of the stuff that they can out of the environment, and that doesn't allow the native species of ants to get those resources. And so when you manage your fire ants, you actually tend to see an increase of other ant species. You have greater ant diversity when you're suppressing the red imported fire ant population because they're not the first ones on the scene grabbing all of the resources. And so those other ants would then have the opportunity to do that. Another ant that is in the Solenopsis genus is the thief ant. Another ant is Solenopsis segmented antennae, a 10-segmented antennae with a 2-segmented club. That's what I wanted to say. But these are very, 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 very tiny, very tiny. And when you look at them, I know in the picture it looks like it's a brown color, but when you look at them far away, they look like tan in color. They're kind of a light brown color. And these are very, very small. They do not. Thief ants is when I'm actually putting out baits to capture ants, and I'll have them foraging to those baits. So these do have a stinger, but they are not aggressive. And they, again, you know, typical Solenopsis, they are predators and scavengers, and they're going to feed on meats and grease. Acrobat ants, these are another two-noted ant, of course. These are eighth of an inch to about 3/8 of an inch. And depending on species, they can be anywhere from a yellow to a blue color. But probably the one that is most prominent is going to be the ones that you see in the picture here. They're going to have a reddish brown head and thorax, and they're going to have a the gaster part of the abdomen is actually, we call it heart-shaped. It's more like a teardrop, but you know, saying it's a heart shape makes them look cuter, I guess. But these are going to be called acrobat ants because they are going to lift that gaster part over their head when you disturb them. So if you kind of poke at them, you'll see them lifting that gaster up, and they look like little tiny acrobats. So these are going to eat, again, insects, meats and grease. They're omnivores, they're scavengers, and these are going to nest in wood. They either think that they're baby carpenter ants, which is not even possibility because baby carpenter ants are going to have a larva form immature stage, because the ants are going to have a complete life cycle. So they are not tiny carpenter ants, and other people think that they are fire ants, which they are not. So they will nest in wood, dead wood, decayed wood, wood that's been termites or fungus or water or something like that. They're not going to be sound. They don't sting, even though they do have a stinger. They are capable of biting you, but I've never ever had one bite me before. And oh, they will protect honeydew producers on plants. So you see them in the bottom picture there. They're actually tending aphids. So these are an ant that will protect them. And if other insects try to come in, like parasitoids or something, to manage those aphids, the ants are going to protect the aphids from any of those predators or parasites that come in. Pharaoh ants and little black ants. These are the genera Monomorium. Another two-noted ant. Both of these are going to have, so these are in the same genera, but they're different species. So for pharaoh ants, this is Monomorium pharaohensis. And then for little black ants, it's Monomorium, completely I thought. It's Monomorium something. Okay, so these are very, very small. Pharaoh ants are often in Texas referred to as sugar ants or piss ants. And they are going to be a light brown to orange color. And the little black ants, which are very similar, are going to be essentially the same size, but they are going to be a dark brown to black color. So pharaoh ants are going to be indoors, little black ants are going to be outdoors. So this is going to be confused with another ant that we have that has kind of taken over where the pharaoh ants normally were, and that's the rover ant. We'll talk about that more later on. That's in a completely different group. So with the pharaoh ants, they are called sugar ants and piss ants because they actually like sweets and things. So that's where the sugar ant came from. The piss ant name actually came from if they would get, they discovered them in hospitals and they were going to urine of certain patients, and it turns out those patients were diabetic. And so it had sugar in the urine, and so that's where the piss ant name came from. So you don't see pharaoh ants very often anymore because we have the rover ant that has kind of taken over their territory. It used to be when I first started kind of working out of Houston. I actually worked in Houston for a pest control company for a period of time. And when I was there, pharaoh ants were like huge. And then we had rover ants kind of move into Texas and they have kind of taken over that. And it's really, really hard to find pharaoh ants anymore. So both of these ants are going to have a stinger, but it is too small for it to actually penetrate the skin. So even if they try to sting you, it's not. So these are going to have, I would say, medium-sized colonies, so tens of thousands of ants. But like I said, they're very, very tiny. And these are going to be, this is another these are going to be polygyne ants. Red imported fire ants are also, they can be monogyne or polygyne. So when we're talking about polygyne ants, it means that they have multiple queens within the colony. And so fire ants, we can have either monogyne, which is a single queen colony, or we can have polygyne colonies, which are multiple queens. With these ones, they're going to have multiple queens. And so when you are treating for these, which you would only really need to treat for pharaoh ants when they're inside the house. Little black ants, they're outside, they're native, it's not a problem, just let them do their thing. And most don't even know that they even exist because they're tiny and people don't pay attention. But for pharaoh ants, if you do have pharaoh ants, you want to use bait products. You do not want to use sprays on these. You don't want to, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I just wiped up the trail with like a cleaner or something. If you do that, you have possibly split that colony. And since they have multiple queens, or they can create multiple queens, then you'll have colonies in more locations. And so if you're baiting them, they're taking that as a food back, sharing it with the other ants. And so you can actually kill the colony that way. But if you're using sprays, you're breaking up those ants and it's making it more difficult to control. Big-headed ants, these are probably some of my most favorite and least favorite ants. I think that they're super cool to look at. but when you are counting them, the minor workers are really, really small, and it's really, really a pain in the butt. So the genus here is Phodoli. They are, again, we're still in 2-node ants. They are going to have a 12-segmented antennae with a 3-segmented club of it, and they're going to have spines on their thorax. So the thing with big-headed ants is if you have both major and minor worker ants, then it's easy to identify them, because the minor workers and the major workers look very, very different. Some people call this the soldier class, and they have big heads. That's actually where they get their name from. So if you have both of those, it's like right away you're like, oh, those are big-headed ants, no problem. But if you don't have any of the ones that have the big heads, it's a little bit more difficult to identify them, because you're going by characteristics on the minor workers there. So these are generally going to be outdoor ants. I've never seen, it doesn't mean that they can't, but I have never in all my time seen these come inside of a house. They're going to nest in soil. They'll also nest under things. The nests are very inconspicuous. And so again, generally the only time that I come across big-headed ants when I am baiting and putting out lures to attract ants and I get them into my traps. So these are another one that they are capable of stinging, but they are not aggressive. They are also, as you can see, they are polymorphic. That's very obvious at their being polymorphic. And these are going to be omnivores. For plants, they're going to feed on seeds generally, and then they'll scavenge insects and things like that to feed on. The Aphaenogaster ants, that's their common name as well as the genus. They have a pair of spines on their thorax. You can see that right there on that last segment there. And they have 12 antennae, no club, and they do have a stinger. These monomorphic ants, all of them are going to be the same exact size. They are going to be anywhere from a light brown to a kind of darker reddish brown almost. But again, this is one of those that while we have them, most people don't ever come across these because they're not really trapping for ants and trying to capture them for identification. So these are going to nest in the ground, typically in open areas. Sometimes they will nest in decaying wood. And this is another one that is going to have fairly small colonies. So several hundred to maybe several thousand individuals. And they're going to scavenge for whatever they can. But, you know, their nests are generally going to be in pretty, I don't know. I mean, just kind of like as you're walking along a trail, you may see them, and you may, you know, if you get a hand lunge, you might be able to say, hey, that's an Aphaenogaster ant. And then say, what's its common name? And you can say it's an Aphaenogaster ant. All right, let's see, harvester ants. This is, I think, the last 2-noded ant. So this is Pogonomyrmex is the genus here. And these are large ants. They are red or reddish brown. And they have 12 segmented antennae, 2 nodes. They have a broad head. It's kind of a squarish broad head, and they have a beard. So this isn't like a thick, full lumberjack beard. This is like a, I don't know, teenager trying to grow a beard. So it's kind of scraggly looking. These are going to eat seeds, and they are scavengers. So when we're looking at their colonies, they are very distinctive. They tend to like soil that is easier to kind of move around. And they're going to clear the vegetation in the area wherever they're nesting, as well as along the trails, where they're going to get food. It's getting close to my bedtime. It's sad. They do have kind of, it's not really a mound. It's more like it's a central opening, and usually you can tell where those central openings are because they have kind of like a gathering of pebbles. It's almost like they're a mound, but it's not really a mound like a fire ant mound. These
Wizzie, I think we lost your sound.
Generally, the only way that you're going to get stung is if you're grabbing them and holding them, or if you're like me and you're in the colony area for 15, 20 minutes watching them, and some of them crawl up your pant leg and you don't know it, and then they get trapped in there and you get stung. So do be careful if you are like me, because I have a feeling if you are a master naturalist, you probably are. So that would be something that you would do. So if you're doing that, you might want to consider tucking your pants into your socks or something so they can't crawl up in there and accidentally sting you. All right, oh man, another two-noted ant. All right, pavement ants. These are Tetramorion, and these have spines on the thorax, 12-segmented antennae, and these are going to have lines or ridges on their head. That is the easiest way to determine if you have a pavement ant. So they have these little ridges on their head, pavement ant. So these are a reddish brown and black. A lot of people mistake these for fire ants, and if you don't know to look for the ridges, you can mistake them for fire ants because they look very, very similar. But they are, obviously foraging is going to be different and that sort of thing. These tend to forage instead of like fire ants. You generally have a trail going to the good stuff. These ones are kind of out, maybe 2 or 3 at a time, or, a lot of times you'll see individuals, but they don't have a distinctive mound like the fire ants do. Usually you have tens of thousands of ants in a colony, and they're going to be usually around cracks and crevices, sidewalks, driveways, foundations of houses, bases of trees. That's kind of where they get their name, pavement ant. All right, moving on to the one-note ants. Finally, let me get a drink of water first. All right, so first one we're starting off with, rover ants. These are the genus Brachymyrmex. And this one right here, and the one that we have in Texas, is Brachymyrmex patagonius. And these are tiny, tiny, tiny ants. And they are dark brown to black in color, but when you look at them and you see them running up and down stuff, they look black. But they have really, really pudgy abdomens. So you can tell them apart because a lot of people think these are sugar ants now because they're used to sugar ants are the tiny ants. Rover ants are the new sugar ant. So they have kind of moved into that niche. But they have one node. They have a circle of hairs at the tip of their abdomen, which you can actually see right there because this is a really good picture. And these are the only ants that I know of that we have in Texas that have 9 segmented antennae. So they are monomorphic. All the workers are going to be the same size. And like I said, they are going to have a very, very pudgy abdomen, especially when you compare that to a sugar ant or a little black ant. So these ones got really fat abdomens. The other two, they're more streamlined or elongated. So rover ants tend to have small colonies, anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand, and they nest in stuff and under stuff. So they'll get into like flower pots. Those are perfect habitats for them because you're watering those a lot. And so they're kind of in there and protected, and they're getting food and they're getting water and they're doing their thing in there. It's not hurting the plant. They're just taking that space. They'll get under, rocks or landscaping materials or things like that. So they nest under or in, and they don't really do anything. They can't sting. They're really tiny, but they can be very annoying. It's getting to the time of year right now where they typically will have their mating flights. I used to have one every year in my kitchen because I had them actually living in the wall. My kitchen abuts the outer part of the house, and there was the wall right there. And so they would always fly up, and I'd have all these ants in my kitchen. And if you are managing rover ants, which if they're inside like mine, you would need to use baits. So this is another one. They really don't respond to sprays very well that can split things up. But with baits, if you're doing that, you need to use either liquid or gel baits because they will take those up more readily because they are very, very tiny. But the other thing with baits is they can be finicky about what they like. And it's not that they like one particular bait over another. It's just, you know, they may just all of a sudden decide, oh yeah, I don't like that anymore. So if you do that, you have to switch baits and kind of get to something until you find something that they like. Carpenter ants, these are probably the largest one-node ant that we have. So this is the genera Camponotus. And these get anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch in size. And we have them, a lot of people think that carpenter ants are a certain color. We have red carpenter ants, black carpenter ants. We have combinations of red and black carpenter ants. We have orange carpenter ants. We actually have some yellow carpenter ants too, that I always get people sending them to me. And I say, oh, that's a carpenter ant. And they're like, but it's yellow. Carpenter ants aren't yellow. They can be. So these are going to have one node, no sting. They don't have a circle of hairs at the tip of the abdomen. And the big thing when you're looking at carpenter ants is if you look at them in profile from the side, everything's like really, really smooth. They don't have hairs on their body. They don't have any kind of lumpy, bumpy sections of their body. It's just like you have your head, you have a nice, smooth, curved thorax, and then you have a nice, smooth, curved abdomen. They are polymorphic. So remember that means more than one size. And that's where that 1/4 to 1/2 an inch goes, but they're still big regardless. Carpenter ants are going to nest in wood, and that is going to, again, they're like acrobat ants. They are not going to be in wood that it's perfectly sound and healthy. They're going to nest in hollow spaces of trees, tree stumps, logs, dead branches, landscaping timbers, any wood that has rot, fungus, has been damaged by termites or water, anything like that. Colonies here, you can go anywhere from hundreds to thousands in that colony, and they can have a parent colony or kind of a main colony, and then they can have satellite colonies that are also part of that. So with the carpenter ants, they are considered a wood destroying insect. They do not eat the wood. So termites actually eat and digest the wood or cellulose material. Carpenter ants are going to actually nest in the wood. And so they will like clean out the, so you can see here the wood, they'll actually make galleries that they're living in, and they throw that garbage and stuff out of their nest, but they're not actually eating that wood. So typically when you see their garbage piles, it's going to look like sawdust with bits of sand and dirt and insect pieces in it, because essentially that's where they're throwing their trash. Like I said, they don't have a sting, but they are capable of biting. And if you need to manage carpenter ants, which again, the only time that you really need to do it is if they're coming in the house. If you know where they're located, replacing whatever wood that they're nesting in with sound wood is going to take care of the problem. Or if it's in a tree stump or something outside, if you get rid of that, it's going to get rid of the problem. You know, there are carpenter ant baits that you can use. They are a different matrix than our fire ant baits, and they're based on a shellfish, which is more attractive to the carpenter ants than what we use for fire ants. The tawny crazy ant, this is probably, well, I would say the latest and greatest, but it's not anymore because we have a new one in parts of Texas. But tawny crazy ants, it's been kind of the hot invasive ant species for the past, oh goodness, I would say 15, 17 years or so. This is Nylandaria fulva. They are one node ants. They have no sting. They have a circle of hairs at the tip of the abdomen. They are a light brown color, about 1/8 of an inch in length. They are monomorphic, so all of them are the same size and shape. They have very long legs, long antennae, and the key when we're looking at tawny crazy ants, because we have other species of not only native crazy ants, but also non-native crazy ants in Texas. When we're looking for tawny crazy ants, we're actually looking at hairs on the thorax. So we're looking at these pairs of thick hairs, and then there's also some hairs down here that you can look at that's between their legs, which is really super crazy. So these, they don't sting, they don't really bite. The problem with these is the numbers. So these were found in Harris County in 2002. So I'm sure most of the people on this are probably very aware of these because it's over in your area. This 27 counties, I need to change that because this is now up to like 43 or something ridiculous. So they have large colonies, huge, millions of ants. And a lot of times they'll have groups of colonies in the same area. And so one colony from another can be indistinguishable. They are polygyne, which means that they have multiple queens. And essentially they get their crazy name because of the way that they trail. So most ants, when you see them trailing along, they're just kind of doing their thing. With crazy ants, and not only tawny crazy ants, but crazy ants are going to have very loose foraging trails, and they essentially run around crazy. So they're not really following a straight line. They're just kind of going all over the place and being very erratic about their movements. Their foraging trails are generally going to be wider than 10 centimeters, and they do tend to follow structural lines. That could be sidewalks, driveways, it could be the garden hose that's running across the backyard, it could be the foundation of the house, just any kind of line. So this thing, the problem with them, like I said, is numbers. So if you look at this bottom picture here, this isn't dirt, it's not sand, these are dead ants. So this is the foundation of a house. After they have treated that foundation, the dead ants pile up. And so if you're trying to manage these, you either have to use something that only pest control people can get. It's a product called fipronil that transfers from ant to ant. But if you use a regular, like if you get something off the shelf at one of the box stores to treat around your foundation to keep them out of the house, you have to clean up the dead ants, because once the dead ants pile up so much, those live ants aren't coming into contact with the pesticide anymore. They're just walking over dead bodies. So it's one of those, this one can be difficult to manage, and their populations do kind of increase and decrease throughout the year. Right now, we're at the part of the year where the populations are peaking. So they're going to be at their highest level, and then they're going to start dropping off, usually about October-ish, and then they'll start building back up in the springtime. So they nest under or in pretty much anything. So it's really easy for them to get transferred from one area to another if you're not careful about looking in whatever you're taking. So if you don't have these currently at your house, make sure that you inspect anything, any landscape materials, any plants, anything that is from an area that has tawny crazy ants. They are going to primarily nest outdoors, but they will come inside to forage for resources. And that's usually when it becomes a major issue, is when they start coming inside. They are omnivorous, and they are big honeydew tenders. They will go up in the trees and get the honeydew from aphids and things like that. Black crazy ants, this is the Paratrichina longicornis. This is the one that we all probably know or were very familiar with before the tawny crazy ant came into Texas. And this one, it's essentially, it looks the same, only this one is a dark brownish black color. And they are going to be monomorphic again. Same kind of thing. It's just their numbers don't get to the numbers of the tawny crazy ant. So these ones, their populations tend to be less than tawny crazy ants, but they still have long legs, long antennae. They run erratically. Nuisance ant, and they're going to typically nest outdoors under stuff, and they are, you know, they're also not native to Texas. Pyramid ants, these are Dory myrmex. No circle of hairs. They have a raised node or a pyramid, which is where they get their name, on their thorax. You can see that right there. They are a medium-sized ant, and they are a dark brown to black color. Pyramid ants are really, really cool. They actually, they don't sting. They create this kind of, I don't know, it almost looks like a volcano crater or something nest. So they have that kind of divot, but these are very, very small nests. You probably see these when you're walking on trails a lot, and you just don't know what they are, but their nest is going to be a circular to horseshoe shaped nest, and it has that divot in it with a centralized opening, and they're anywhere from about 2 inches to 4 inches across. So they're not very big at all. But these are predators and scavengers. They actually will fight with fire ants over resources. So these ones are native, and yes, we're almost done. So these are native ants. So if you see these, you definitely want to keep these around. Ghost ants, these are another one that is a invasive species, and they're not really seen all that much away from coastal areas of Texas. But these are very tiny ants. They're called ghost ants because they are a very pale color. Generally, when you're looking at them, you can see their head, which is a darker color than the thorax and the abdomen. But they're fast moving. They do run around erratically. And typically, these are going to be nesting outside in soil, underneath stuff, in plants, but multiple queens. So if you're treating for these, you would want to use a bait product. Odorous house ants, they have an uneven thorax and no sting. They have a circle of hairs at the tip of the abdomen. This is another one that they are, when they're outside, not a problem at all. They're great out there, and they're going to be nesting under stones. The problem is if they come indoors, which can happen. These are going to eat honeydew, sweets, and meats. And these are called odorous house ants because when you squish them, they kind of have a musty odor to them. Cheese ants, this is another, if it's outside, not a problem. I really don't see these coming in, but these ones are often mistaken for tawny crazy ants and Argentine ants. So if you see something, usually if you have the ants foraging around outside, the first thing I do is I squish them with my finger and I smell my finger. And if it smells like blue cheese, when you squish it, it's going to be a cheese ant. So this is Pharilius. So these are not a problem at all. These are actually great ants to have around. But seriously, if you squish them, they smell like blue cheese. So typically outside, they're absolutely perfectly fine. Not one that I would worry about managing. Argentine ants, these ones are, like I said, mistaken for cheese ants. Also sometimes mistaken for tawny crazy ants. But if you look at them, they do not have those hairs on their thorax like the tawny crazy ants do. And then you can also squish them to see if they smell like blue cheese. And again, these ones, I really don't see them coming indoors. I have seen these like getting into vehicles and stuff in parking lots, going after people's lunches. But this is another, it's an invasive ant. It's been here for a really long time, so we're not tracking it at all. But they eat lots and lots of different things, and their colonies can be very, very large. They can have multiple queens, and they're typically going to be outdoors. So as long as they're outdoors and staying out there, then it's fine. It's just if you start getting really, really large numbers, they can forage indoors for resources. So this is my contact information. We do have 2 podcasts in case you are interested in more information on bugs. You can stream these on whatever podcast platform that you like. So Bugs by the Yard and Unwanted Guests. And then I also, I do a webinar series twice a month. If you are interested in joining that email list to get that information, you can shoot me an email. My email's up here. And then the other thing is I do short video clips on insects. So if you just go to YouTube and put my name in, Wizzie Brown, you'll be able to find my YouTube channel with all of those videos. And that is what I have. So if I need to adjust my screen.
I had turned off your video while you were speaking because we were having, we had parts where your voice would pause and then it would buffer for a little while. So I turned off your video. If you'd like to go ahead and turn it back on.
No worries.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you about is the elegant twig ant. Are those in our area?
I don't know, so the weird ants I typically don't know a whole lot about because that's not the ones I get questions on. So I would have to do some research.
I took pictures of this ant in my backyard and it likes to run, you see them because they're long, and what a cool name, right? I put it on, of course, iNaturalist, and someone said it was an elegant twig ant. And I looked it up and I said, that looks just like what I'm seeing. And they'll run right over you. And, it'll be like 1 or 2 and they'll be out while I'm sitting reading a book and they'll just run right over you. And you're like, what was that? It was an elegant twig ant that just took off.
That is so cool. Are those the ones that are like real long and skinny?
Really long and skinny.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about then. Yep.
You need me to send you some? I can send you some.
Yeah, I probably have them in my front yard trees actually.
Yeah. You sit still under the tree long enough, you'll know. Because they just run right over you. Don't even care. So let's see what we do have for some of our questions. I know we had some further back. I scan through the chat.
Okay, I'm hitting the chat. Hold on a
You're
minute.
hitting the chat too, huh? I know somebody asked about the fact that red imported fire ants bite and sting. And the bite, you don't really feel as much as you feel the sting. They bite just
right. The bite, they're essentially doing that to hold on to you, so you can't get rid of them that easily. That's why you have to actually brush them off of your body physically instead of actually just kind of rinsing or whatever.
Right.
Did I do a thesis for my master's degree? Yes, I did. And my thesis was actually on cockroach parasitoids. So little tiny wasps that lay their eggs in egg cases of cockroaches. And I actually did my master's work. The research was done at the Rainforest Pyramid at Moody Gardens. And they had a really horrible cockroach problem because, the bat cave, if you were in there before they remodeled it, they had the bat cave in there and there's plenty of food, there's water, it was dark, there were cockroaches everywhere. And so we released these parasitoids in the Rainforest Pyramid and it actually reduced the cockroach population enough that, it wasn't an issue anymore. So yeah, I love cockroaches. I'm a huge cockroach fan. So yeah, I had to work on cockroaches. My major advisor wanted me to work on termites and I was like, no, I don't want to. I want to work on cockroaches. Is the thesis available? It's in the TAMU library somewhere. I don't know if that's available to other people or not, but it's there. Did all species of ants come from a single species that mutated? Well, that's kind of how evolution works, so I would say yes. I only thought females in the Hymenoptera family have stingers, modified ovipositors. Yes, that is true, that the females only have modified ovipositors that can sting. The males, essentially with males and ants, they just kind of hang out in the colony until they're needed for mating purposes, and then they do their thing and then they die. So, are we able to get a copy of the presentation later? If you email me, I can send you a PDF. Just let me know what presentation you want, because it might be other that I'm not to do.
I'm recording also, and I'll post this to our the Heartwoods YouTube channel.
Okay. Let's see. I was watching. Hold on a minute. Somebody's here.
Okay.
Carolyn, did you want to take that PDF of the presentation and put that on the website?
I certainly.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I was watching Red Harvester Ant Colony over a couple years. I stopped seeing any adults for a year or more, then ants reappeared. Was it likely the same colony, or could a new queen take over an abandoned nest? It could be either. Yes, a new queen could have moved in, or it could have been the same colony and they were just foraging somewhere else. Either way. Red imported fire ants sting and bite, yes. Biting just to hold on, stinging is the business end. Crazy ants are crazy because of the way that they run around. On tiger ants, I know nothing about tiger ants at all. I've never heard of tiger ants. So I have nothing. I'm going to need to look them up. I'm actually writing that down right now. Tiger ants. Do crazy ants invade electrical equipment, causing it to fail? Yes, they can. Red imported fire ants can also do that. And essentially what happens is they usually go into electrical equipment because it's a protected space and it's protected from weather, predators and stuff like that. And so it's a really great place for them to hang out. And then they kind of all glom in there, and then they start breaking down the electrical, like the stuff around the electrical stuff. And so that ends up shorting stuff out. So yeah, it can cause problems. And that can be air conditioners, that could be pool equipment. I think that that is it. Oh, wait, are fire ants displacing carpenter ants and thus depriving? So the food of the horned lizards are actually the harvester ants, and red imported fire ants, they're not displacing them. They can move into those areas and get resources, like I said, and that's essentially with any type of ant there. But with the red harvester ants, it's not just the fire ants that are causing the issue. It's also, you know, kind of habitat destruction, where we're urbanizing a lot of these areas and, you know, putting in buildings and housing places and stuff like that. And so that can lead to their colonies not having the space that they need to survive. Do I know if there are spiders that mimic or live with any of our ants? Yes, there are spiders that, oh no, wait, I'm thinking there are ants that mimic spiders. I don't think that there are spiders that mimic ants, but I know that there are ants that actually mimic spiders in the way that they hold the antennae and legs and everything. And I know that there are other insects that live with ants, but I don't know if there are spiders. But I know that there's different types of insects that will actually go in the colony, and they actually get the pheromones on the ants of them. That way they can sneak in and do all of their stuff. They're really, really cool. Are all these located throughout Texas? I wouldn't say throughout Texas for all of them, but I would say a good portion of them you can find. And yes, squish. You only have to squish and smell them if they're like a small kind of tan colored ant. Should we expect armyworms here? I don't know where here is for you, Julie, but I know in Central Texas we are having an armyworm problem here. And I think we also have one in the Dallas area. So anybody in those areas, yes, keep an eye out for armyworms.
I wanted to let you know, Wizzie, that David, who asked if we were finished yet, I think it was his bedtime. He's one of my neighbors. He's about 8 years old and he loves ants. So I'm so glad he got to join us for this presentation. Yeah, I think it was his bedtime.
So cute. Yeah, I gotta probably go hustle my kid to bed. It's almost time for him to start.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So yeah, I think that's all the questions, unless anybody has anything that they want to chime in about.
I would love for you to send me the PDF as well, and I can add that to a blog on our website. And then, like I said, as soon as I get the recording, I will add it to the Heartwood YouTube channel, Heartwood TMN. And if anyone would like a copy of it there, they can watch it there. I thank you so much for joining us, Wizzie. This was absolutely great. I love ants.
Awesome. And somebody asked, I do not have an iNaturalist account that I actually post to. I'm a lurker.
And an identifier, right?
No, I'm not.
You don't even identify? Wizzie.
I don't, because you know I'm doing so much of that already that would just be like a whole nother
a whole nother
job.
That's right. That's right. Well, I thank you so much for joining us. For people who are members of Heartwood, we had 0.25 to record for chapter business for the chapter meeting, and our advanced training was an hour. 1.25 hours for advanced training. If you need to go and record that into VMS, get all of your statistics right. Thank you again, Wizzie. I am so looking forward to meeting you one day and talking ants.
Anytime, just let me know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's it for our meeting, folks. I appreciate everyone who joined us from the chapter and from around the state, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the future. Bye, guys.